Hello and welcome everybody to 1992. 1992, I was alive on the earth. I wasn't golfing or paying attention to like the majors, for example. Someone won the Masters by the name of Fred Couples. I'm pretty sure it was Fred Couples. That's off the top of my head. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comments below. The Knicks won. So Nick Faldo won the Open. Nick Price won the PGA Championship. And I want to say Tom Kite won the US Open. I might have just said a bunch of names that have nothing to do with 1992. What do you remember from 1992? We already talked about movies. I want to talk about video games. In 1991, Super Nintendo came out. In 1992, Zelda: A Link to the Past came out. And everybody was super excited about that. Street Fighter 2 was huge. I remember the arcade. I remember it was out on Nintendo everywhere, and at Super Nintendo, it was like, whoa! Mario Kart came out, and everybody was like, this has a lot of potential. This is going to be really good. So 1992 was a fun time for video games. I remember people were still talking about how awesome 16-bit was. We didn't adopt a SNES, a Super Nintendo, or Sega Genesis straight away. So we were still back in 8-bit NES world. If you guys remember those times, let me know in the comments below. Super Nintendo. Street Fighter 2. Was that the Hadouken? Is that what they even say? We never knew as kids. We would just make up words. Either way, Mizuno comes out with this wide body. Let's get this on the review table and have a closer look. They made this very easy to identify from outer space. Wide body on the sole. One. And then down here it is Mizuno since 1906. Kind of keep that on the down low. That's the sole. As we spin around the skirt, you can see these dents don't come factory. That's special patina, one of a kind, added to this particular club. And look, they put grooves on drivers back then. Nice wide sole, competing with some of the best. Now, according to one of my sources, this is titanium. It looks like steel, and it has kind of the weight of steel, but I trust my source, so I guess it might be titanium? Let me know in the comments below if you know for sure if this is titanium or not. Either way, Mizuno and script here on the crown is the alignment line. Nice silver crown here. Very age appropriate, era appropriate. Plain black ferrule. Kind of this greenish gray. What is this? XR2 2.8 torque shaft. Let's see what it says here on the label. Flex 9. There you go. Flex 9. That helps out. I put the sticker on just so I can remember. This looks like it's a wrap style. A Cordy wrap. Golf Pride grip. I'm guessing that's aftermarket. Always hard to say, but very functional driver. Or is it? Let's get this out on the range and see what we think of it. Mizuno wide body today. First impression is it looks like golf in the early 90s. I mean, what else do you want me to say about it? It's a steel driver. It doesn't look excessively huge like a modern driver. And it doesn't look tiny like a Pittsburgh persimmon. There were persimmon woods that seemed to be similar in shape, maybe a tiny bit smaller, but this is a good looking head right here. Nothing distracting about the shaft, kind of a greenish gray. The label is probably the most distracting thing in the lineup right now. But it looks fine. The grip is a Cordy Tour wrap, so it has some life left in it, although it is pretty hard. All right. Oh. First shots of the day. This is where the entertainment really comes out in this world. All right. Kind of a little fade going with that. That's a pretty normal shot shape for me, with the wind helping that little fade a little bit. Felt really good, actually. I mean, it wasn't like a loud ping. It was just a good, very reasonable tink there, for lack of a better word. So it actually feels really good. Let's see if we can give you any more information here on this next one. That was a little bit pulley.
the head doesn't feel excessively heavy or anything. It feels, it feels like something I could totally play. It's fun today with today's modern drivers. How these things are, they're the same technology, right? They're just metal woods. So why would you not go with something bigger? And I 100% agree with that. But for the 90s, I can see how people would move to something like this. Personally, now in hindsight, I like the persimmons more because they seem more rare, as more kind of like an oddity, something special. But back then they were just a dime a dozen. Everybody had been playing persimmon woods for decades at that point. So this would be something new and exciting, and I get it. Let's hit one more here. And look at the results. Totally get used to this. Totally game this. It's just the Mizuno wide body. Why would you? It says right here on the club, as you saw, 1906. Since 1906. All right, well, let me know your thoughts and memories. The Mizuno wide body, would you put this in your bag, take it to the range? Did you ever own one of these? Do you still play it? Mizuno wide body.
To me, this, I'm going to say it, feels a little bit better than the Big Bertha, the Callaway Big Bertha. Maybe the looks aren't quite as iconic, but to me, I like it more, which seems crazy. Maybe not the looks, but as far as like a cool early 90s club, this is it. If I were going to build an early 90s set, now this is the club I would throw in there before anything else. If I had to make the greatest, early 90s set, this would be the greatest hits for driver. That's how much I like it. It feels fine when I'm hitting it. It's not comparable in my mind to modern drivers, 460cc heads, and it's very different than persimmon woods. And as soon as I say that, I'm thinking about the Woods Brothers persimmons in the early 90s, and those are pretty nice too. Either way, top three for awesome drivers from the early 90s, and I love this. Now, these don't get a lot of love in aftermarket when people are speaking with their money, let's say it that way. Because the early metal woods are metal. So people are kind of like, I would rather have persimmon. But to me, this is the amazing transition that happened. This is when every year people were buying new drivers. Every 2 years, you had to buy a new driver to keep up with technology because they were growing in size, the new technologies, the new materials. And they were really pushing that envelope. And so this to me was a fantastic, fast-paced, fast-moving era. You look at the last 10 years of drivers, and you're like, you look at all the technology hype, because they're not really making that many strides. There have been like no new materials. TaylorMade's using carbon fiber, which they were using in 1980 with the Mizuno Vanguard woods. It's like, and Yonex and Wilson and Daiwa. Pick one. So many companies were making, and then Callaway C4. And then TaylorMade, look at carbon fiber. What else is in that? TaylorMade. There's a little bit of titanium, and then there's aluminum, and then so the same materials you've been using for the last 20 years. Titleist, what's it? Titanium. Like 1995, like the biggest Big Bertha, like the great Big Bertha, Ruger titanium, but not Ruger titanium, made in China titanium. Yeah. So you can see why I'm fascinated with this era of the 90s. It's just like, we went from persimmon. Yeah, you could, TaylorMade with, and through the 80s. Through the 80s and 90s, it was like, let's try some new materials. Here's carbon fiber. Here's steel. And then we're going to move to titanium. And then we're going to make them bigger. And then you hit the early 2000s, and then they blow up. And then we are today. Living in a world where people are like, golf equipment's too good. We need to make the balls bigger and dumb down the equipment. They should use woods, like real woods, like the pros in Major League Baseball are only allowed to use wooden bats. So you can see why I'm fascinated with this era. It's just simply fascinating. And again, if you want to enjoy this era, it's super cheap. Just go to Goodwill and just pick something up for a couple of bucks, or eBay for $20 plus shipping, $30, whatever you can get into one of these for. I don't know how hard these are to find. I bought this on eBay pre-pandemic. So this was before, yeah, I'm backlogged. People are like, can I send you some clubs? I'm like, if you want to see the review in 4 or 5 years. This club was cheap. I don't know what it is now. Go on eBay. Don't ask me. The market speaks for itself. Go on eBay and see what they're going for. Leave a comment in the comments below if you want to help other people know the timestamp of when you saw something, because it'll change every month and every year. So Mizuno wide body, high on my list, top 3, super awesome driver from a fun era of where driver development actually meant something. Excited to read your comments. As usual, a huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Another way you can support this channel is by visiting my Amazon shop. I'll put a link in the description below. I am an Amazon associate. I make proceeds from qualifying purchases. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I am the Vintage Golfer.